Broadcasting worldwide from an undisclosed location high up on the Rocky Mountains, here are your hosts, Chris and Cherie Gio.
Welcome back, hour number 2, right here on Truth Frequency. It is November 8th, 2014. Joining us, we have our dear friends Christopher Everard and Max Igan. We're going to talk about the New World Order. What exactly is the New World Order? As I mentioned before, we did a New World Order broadcast back in 2010, and I believe both Max and Chris joined us on that panel, as well as many, many other people, Jack Blood and several others. And we discussed New World Order as we saw it back in 2010, but further research into this New World Order agenda has revealed some very startling revelations, to say the least. In the first hour, I also discussed how we were on a station at one point that was taken over by white supremacists. And the rhetoric was literally calling people Jew pigs and then snorting into the microphone. It was bad. It was so bad that we branched off and created TFR on our own because we didn't want to be associated with that. But I've had this hypothesis that people like that, who use that kind of rhetoric, are injected into this realm, whether it is through a knowing of what they're doing, or maybe they're just useful idiots, one or the other. But I believe that this is ultimately created by the power structure, because when we get to the root of the matter, we really are talking about an Israeli and Zionist control. And when you start to connect the dots, you do see this large plan that is an Israeli Zionist New World Order. But as soon as you start talking about that, you get categorized with these white supremacists. See, that's what they're there for. They're there to make you so disgusted with what they're doing and doing things that are so deplorable to anybody. I would say that judging somebody based on race or color or religion or culture or any of that is pretty deplorable. But they do this in order to ultimately hide the truth and make people reluctant to talk about what we're going to talk about in the second and third hour of the broadcast. So I just wanted to make a big distinction between what those people are doing and what we're doing here on this show. On this show, we are getting to the root of the matter. We're getting to the cold, hard facts. And the facts are going to take us wherever they may take us. And if the people that are doing this, the Zionist control, if they believe that they are something special because of a culture or because of a religion or because of a race, that's their belief. That's their racism. What we're saying here is that the race doesn't matter. The bloodlines don't matter. What matters is that these people believe all of this. And they are putting plans into action and doing things that are crimes against humanity in order to ultimately bring forth this New World Order agenda. We have Max Igan on the line with us. Max, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me on again, brother.
Absolutely. How are you feeling today?
Oh, getting there, mate. Slowly recovering. I've been very, very ill. I've been down for the count with meningitis, and it's a slow recovery process. I tell you, I still don't feel anywhere near well. It's just a very, very slow process getting back on my feet, getting my strength back. I am recovering. I'm getting better. I'll come out stronger for it in the end.
Good. That's good to hear. That's all we really can do at this point is when we start getting hit with all these tidal waves of negativity, whether it's physical negativity or spiritual attacks, we have to take it and strengthen ourselves from it. And you are truly an inspiration. Now, what I find odd, and I don't know how far deep you want to go into this, but this seemed to happen right at a point where you were going back into Gaza. Do you want to go down that road, or it's totally up to you?
Well, it is very, very, I don't know, I can't help but question it, because I came down with this illness right as I was supposed to be going into Gaza Strip. I actually postponed my trip into Gaza for an unrelated reason, just for a week. I only postponed for a week because I wanted to make sure I got safe passage across the Sinai. And then 2 days later, I came down with this illness. Ended up in, I was a mess, medical attention and all sorts of stuff. And had I gone to Gaza, had I not postponed, I actually would have been melting down with meningitis as I was entering into Gaza Strip. So I would have got there, I would have had no medication, I probably would have died in Gaza, I would have taken meningitis to Gaza and infected all of them, and I can't help but wonder about the timing of the whole thing. It came out of nowhere as well. I mean, meningitis is something, you need physical contact to contract meningitis, you know, like it's saliva or body fluids or something like that. So I haven't been in contact with anybody, so I have no idea where I got this from.
That is very strange. What's the situation like in Gaza now? I know you had a lot of contacts. We did hours and hours of broadcasts on the subject. What's your YouTube channel, really quick? Because I know you have a lot of those posted to YouTube, so people can check those out if they're interested.
Oh, my YouTube channel is The Crow House. The situation in Gaza at the moment is pretty bad. I mean, after the incursion that Israel just directed at them, I mean, 51 days of intensive bombing. We're told that the death toll is 2,500 or something. It's much, much more. much more than that. There's still a lot of people that are unaccounted for that will be trapped under buildings. So you're going to find it's tens of thousands of people that are missing. At the moment, Israel has closed all the borders into Gaza. And on the Egyptian side, General Sisi has actually bulldozed all the houses adjacent to the border. And he's thinking about digging a moat along the border. So they're basically turning Gaza into a supermax prison. Everything that, every agreement that was made to bring about the truce has been broken. Israel's broken the ceasefire every single day since it started. They've been firing on fishing boats and firing on people, just their usual stuff. So it's very, very bad at the moment. And now we've got people calling for a two-state solution. We've got all these countries now standing up saying they want to recognize the Palestinian state. And these are people that never gave a damn about the Palestinians before, and now they're saying they want to recognize a Palestinian state. So that should be a red flag for most people, because if a Palestinian state is recognized under the current division, then it will be a two-state solution. And this tiny little Palestinian state will be only one false flag away from being stomped on by the pariah that is Israel, that is right next door, and it will also legitimize Israel. If they create a two-state solution, then that will be the end of Palestine. You know, the whole country is called Palestine, and it needs to be one country, and whether it's Israel or Palestine or whatever it's called, it needs to be one country under democratic rule with equal rights for all people. Not a Jewish state, not a Muslim state, but a democratic state with equal rights for all. But it needs to be one state, not a two-state solution. It won't work. This Jewish state will not work. And if they do succeed in creating a two-state solution, it will only work to the advantage of the Greater Israel Project.
This is really heartbreaking to hear what's going on and seeing what's transpiring before us. Looking at that, they're trying to provoke in order to emerge the rulers of the world. I mean, is that pretty much where we're heading?
Well, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, the whole Greater Israel Project is what it's all about. That's what this whole Middle Eastern conflict is all about. The Greater Israel Project, it's a paper that was written by a man called Oded Yinon back in the 80s. It's called A Strategy for Israel in the 1980s. And you can read this document and you'll find that it's what's being played out in the Middle East now, to a T. The whole document basically says that to survive, Israel must become a regional power, and it must affect the division of the whole area by the dissolving of all existing Arab states into smaller states.
Hold that thought, Max. Let's elaborate that on the other side. We'll also bring Christopher Everard on. Chris, how are you doing, sir?
Fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. How is everything over at EnigmaTV.com?
Very, very good.
So we were discussing, as I'm sure you heard, the Greater Israel Plan, the Zionist plan for the Middle East. Have you had a chance to look into that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something which I've been covering very, very closely. Really, what we're seeing is a continuation of the Kingdom of Jerusalem that was actually established in the year 1099. So really, basically, we have to look at the Vatican, the Rothschilds family, and Buckingham Palace. These are the three factions that have influence over Benjamin Netanyahu. And, Israel does not have a king, and it doesn't have a queen. It just has a prime minister. And the reason for that is because he takes his orders from higher up the ladder. And at the moment, it's really the Rothschilds and Buckingham Palace which are formulating a lot of this policy. and we are going to see a modern version of the old Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Kingdom of Jerusalem included Lebanon, large parts of Syria, including Aleppo, which is, been in the news just recently, big chunk of northern Egypt, and the two blue stripes on the Israeli flag at the top and bottom of the flag, they represent the Euphrates River, which is in Iraq, and the Nile, which runs through Egypt. So this is a long-term plan, and we are actually seeing the Kingdom of Jerusalem as it used to be, which was originally formed by the Knights Templar, coming into fruition today. And they took over Iraq, and they're actually going to create this modern version of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which we now call Zionism.
Max has spoken about this in the past, how we're basically dealing with Khazars. We're not dealing with the actual Hebrew bloodline, but they're instead the false Hebrews, the fake Jews that even Revelations talks about. They talk about the synagogue of Satan.
Yeah. Well, what you can see, and this is, I'm not making this up, this is absolutely something that you can verify yourselves. Just go online and check it out for yourselves. We have seen massive carnage and murder being inflicted by one faction of the Jewish population onto another faction of the Jewish population. For example, 6,000 Sephardic Jewish children were deliberately overdosed with X-rays. 6,000 of these Sephardic Jewish children were basically, they had their brains boiled with X-rays. There's a documentary film about this, and this really happened. And yes, there is a power struggle within the Hebrew families. So it's not just a situation where, there's outside influence. They have been murdering themselves.
Yes, I have seen that throughout history as well. Now, the idea that Netanyahu is controlled by the Crown and the Vatican, I would say that, I agree with that to a certain extent, but in my opinion, it's all one monster. It's all one monster with several different arms. I've always said this since the very beginning, and to people like Jordan Maxwell and others who say, oh, it's the Jesuits, it's the Vatican, it's the Pope, it's the Crown, it's this and that. But really what it comes down to, and Max, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all working together for the exact same agenda.
Well, they're all working together, but they've all got their own agenda as well. Like for example, you look at if you look at the Greater Israel Project, and you look at what happened with the invasion of Iraq, for example. I don't think the American government went into Iraq with the plan to divide it into three sectarian states. I think they went in there with the plan to promote instability in the region and secure control of the resources and hopefully maybe put in a puppet regime. But then you'd have the Zionist influences that basically manipulate things from the side, and we end up with what we've got now. And you end up with ISIS, which ISIS has gone in there and effectively turned Iraq into three sectarian states. It's kind of divided into three. So you've got a section for the Shiites, a section for the Sunnis, and a section for the Kurds. This is the way they do it. See, the whole thing, the whole Greater Israel plan, it operates on two essential things. It's to survive, Israel must become the imperial regional power, and it must affect the division of the entire area around it into smaller states. And it does this, and how small the states will be will depend on the sectarian composition of each state. How many people are there. So they stir up sectarian hatred. They divide the whole place into smaller states, and then all these smaller states are fighting each other, and so that kind of legitimizes Israel's existence because it appears to be the only stable force in the area when it's the one who's gone and destabilized the whole thing. And what Chris said about the two stripes on the flag, this is exactly right, the Nile and the Euphrates. This is the plan for Greater Israel. And it includes Syria, it includes Jordan, it includes the top of Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, parts of Lebanon. This has been the plan for the whole time, and this is why they've gone in there and done things the way they have. It's all part of the Greater Israel Project. And even there was another document that was called Israel's Sacred Terrorism. It was written by a man called Livia Rakash. And it's based on the memoirs of Moshe Sharett, former Prime Minister of Israel. And it basically outlines the 1978 invasion of Lebanon to a T. It's exactly what they did, and it's kind of a smaller, condensed version of this Yinon plan. And the Yinon plan was also outlined by, way back as far as Theodore Herzl and Rabbi Fishman in 1947. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. It's always been the plan to go and destabilize the entire region to create this greater Israel project, and that's what it's always been about.